Welcome back and thank you for staying with Morning Express. We're evaluating issues surrounding mental health and actually blowing up this debate. Joining us to help us shed more light on this, Marta Jane Gasheru, who is a counseling psychologist. We're also joined by way of Zoom by Dr. Susan Getao, who's a counseling psychologist and lecturer at African Nazarene, as well as Onyango Otieno, who's a mental health advocate. And of course, we had your sentiments earlier on. Onyango Otieno, I'd like to come back with you because the bigger question now might be, since we know that stress, depression, anxiety attacks might be telltale signs, how to deal with this and at what particular point. As I mentioned before the break, a patriarchal society doesn't make it any easier for perhaps the male gender to open up, being termed as a sign of weakness. You've opened up. Talk to us about how exactly you got to this point, and when do you know that enough is enough so we can actually help our viewers?
Yeah, now our resilience levels are extremely different from person to person. What might affect me one way could affect Dr. Susan very differently. She might cope better, and Jane might also, cope very differently. I think the bigger question also is around self-awareness, how we really know ourselves, how we understand our bodies, how we understand our minds. Now, depression, all these mental situations affect the brain a lot. And I think one disservice that probably all of us have in this world is we are not taught how our brains operate. We're not taught how our brains function. Because like in the issue of police officers and the military and the defense forces, overexposure to traumatic experiences even can change your brain. Right? Can change how you think, can change your health, can change your perceptions of the world, can change everything. But because of that lack of what Dr. Susan mentioned called debriefing, they are not able to get these things out. So the kind of environment you live in is such a huge factor in, getting your body to know how much it can withstand and how much it can't, depending on what you're doing with your life. But for most times, I often suggest that when you find yourself in a position or in a place or a situation where you're not able to do your normal functions or your daily functions in a way that you're used to, where maybe sometimes, you feel too lazy or you're not able to accomplish the tasks you normally do in a particular time, or sometimes you feel you have too much adrenaline, because the other extreme is also a point of conversation.
All right.
And you feel like your body is just not in a good place. And I think most times we are unable to communicate these issues because we do not have the language. Most people don't have the language to express what they're really feeling. And one of the work of something called the mental health bill that is actually currently in the Senate is for the government to key in some money where we are going to be doing like public communication in indigenous communities, so that people really understand from the grassroots what mental health really is about, because that is among the language barrier is among the big problems we are facing.
Okay, well, it's definitely challenging. Dr. let me bring you into the conversation. Mental health issues can be genetic, one or the other. Whether it's true or not, kindly clarify for us, even as you shed light on some of the disorders that might be brought forth, especially amongst people with mental health issues. Personality disorder, I've been diagnosed with it. Does it mean I truly have issues or I can work through it? Also, people who might have bipolar, is this an issue as well? Talk to us about it.
Thank you so much. If we were to start talking about mental disorders, there are very many. But I would like maybe to direct our viewers on a manual. It's available. It's called Diagnostic Statistical Manual 5, DSM-5. You will find it. It's a global clinical assessment tool, and you can even find yourself there. But I want to talk about what you've asked, genetic inheritance. And I like people not to self-victimize. I would like people not to accept wholly that because my father, my mom had depression, or my grandmother, my auntie. Because if you go with that mentality, you do not allow your brain to accept the uniqueness that Onyango has talked about. And many a times, that's why you saw me smiling. My father battled depression for over 23 years. And I was able to find out, because when a child is born, unless you are actually assessed that there's a very serious problem with your brain, and we are able to pick them at a very tender age, you realize most of the people start losing their mental health capacity in teenage. And you may need to investigate what has been happening in this person's maybe childhood until this time of teenage, that other things are coming up. The other stage that you find people losing their mental health status is actually when they're in their young adulthood. You will find most of the young couples, these things are happening. Maybe later, there could be other psychosocial issues that have cropped up. And what we do as therapists, we have the patience, we have the time to sit with somebody and do all that history taking so that we can find out at what point did you have this depression? At what point did we start talking about you behaving in a psychotic way? At what point did you start exhibiting or showing post-traumatic stress disorders? What could have led to this? Because where I am, I believe like you, that prevention is better than cure. And when I started counseling, it was by default, because I was actually a high school teacher. And I keep mentioning this, that one of the students committed suicide. And when I followed up, he had become depressed, but I was not aware. I like when I talk about people are not aware when somebody is losing it. And so you keep pushing them to the corner. And when you push them to the farthest corner where they can't breathe anymore, they can do the worst, like what you have seen. And when they are doing it, they are actually not aware they are actually doing it until the reality now hits. So what I would like to say is that, yes, there can be genetic inheritance, but if you are aware and proper measures are taken into consideration, you do not have to go to full-blown mental health issues. The other thing I would like to say is that there are lots of social issues that are happening. Like now, in the state of our nation right now, there's a lot of mental health issues. And I want to believe we need to have an organized way of intervention that goes all the way to mashinani, grassroots, so that my neighbor, I can tell when my neighbor is not okay, and I know where to report. In most cases, people see, they hear couples have been fighting, they hear children have been yelling, but they don't know where to go for help. And I guess this is the one thing that I always say in this nation is a missing point. Where does the common man, that common child, that ordinary woman go when they feel they have a lot of pressure? Where do they go? Where do they report to? Because that is a major concern. They can go to the chief to report about stuff, but where do I go and tell somebody I am not feeling okay? And it is as simple as the way Onyango has put it. If I'm not able to carry out my normal business on a daily basis, I need to count myself as somebody who needs to actually retreat. And we need to teach everybody, children, teenagers, adults, about neuroplasticity. How do I allow my brain to relax? Because to me, that is a tool. If any one of them has it, and that is why you find some people will run away to drawing, some people, that is healthy. Other people will run away to writing, like counselors, we write journals and journals, because there are issues that we also get in we have a way. Like every Sunday we meet, every Wednesday we meet, those right now after the lockdown, and we allow ourselves to ventilate. But who knows that? The common people, do they know that? Because that is my biggest concern. Because if I know, I really don't have to worry about any mental health issues I could be going through. Is there somebody to understand me? Is there somebody to listen to me? Is there somebody to help me balance my brain? Because I like what Onyango is saying. If I can have a way, I can balance my two hemispheres of the brain. The one that thinks logically, the one that is factual, and the one that senses, the one that is illogical. If I'm able to get that balance, then I'm good to go with anything that comes my way. And I don't have to store anything in my mind that can later just crop up
All right.
when I least expect and harm my loved ones.
Okay, well, you've talked about balance. Jane Gasheru, I mean, you earlier on mentioned that perhaps right now, many people's escapes in terms of I used to escape in my work might have been affected due to the lockdown restrictions put in place 1 year on. And we've definitely seen how exactly the plight of those with mental health definitely needs to be talked about, even as you talked about organized intervention. Talk to us about these measures that have been put in place during COVID-19, how exactly they're exacerbating an already bad situation. But the all-important question, how do I find balance? Yet perhaps I used to listen to music or go to the club. Right now I can't. Yeah.
All right. So when we speak of balance, as a human being, our lives have what we call different aspects, in the sense that for me to be whole, I need to pay attention to how my career is going. I need to pay attention to how my relationships are functioning. I need to pay attention to also how my spiritual life as well. Mm-hmm. But then you find that we are living in a world where people are only being trained to succeed at one thing, our career. Or if you're in business, whatever that is, anything that gives you money. And so we sort of have ignored the other aspects of life. And you have a lot of people doing well in one area of their lives, and then everything else is forgotten. So that means this person has been focusing on this one area of their lives, again, mostly their career. And then what happens when there is a crisis? When this person has a crisis situation, then they will not be able to deal with it, because the skills that they need, the coping mechanisms that they need, are not only drawn from what you do in terms of your work or career. If you do not, if you don't make time, or you don't spend time trying to, grow spiritually, or even spend time trying to grow your social relationships, whether it's a marriage, whether it's your relationships with your friends, then it means that you have nowhere to run to when there is a crisis. And so if, for example, Dr. Susan is talking about being able to share your problems with other people. Who is this that I'm going to share my problems with if I have abandoned that social aspect of my life? Sure. You find that most people are feeling isolated, and you ask most people when they show up with extreme stress, depression, and you ask them, who is your support system? And they'll tell you that I probably only talk to one person, or I have one friend. You ask them about their family, they tell you they don't have a good relationship with their family members. This person is married, but they don't have a good relationship with their spouse. So in short, even if something were to happen to them, the number of people that you could call as backup or support is also limited. And so that tells you that they have been struggling with their problems alone, because the answer is always, who do I tell? I've got nobody to tell. Again, even spiritually, then this person has nowhere to run to, because they again have abandoned that aspect of their lives. So that is what, apart from just even our, what we are calling now psychological coping, is more than just, yes, there is a lot, there is need for self-awareness. There is need also for you to understand how you function as a person. You need to understand your thought processes. All of us have a particular thought pattern. And if you understand how you think as a person, then you begin to see where the problems are, where the dysfunctions are, because you're likely to see a certain pattern that is causing you problems. We also have a certain way that we function as individuals in terms of our emotions. And that's why we say that some people are angry, some people are bitter, some people are happier than others. We have a certain way that we function even in terms of our behavior. Okay. But at the end of the day also, being balanced means that you're paying attention to all these areas of life that we are talking about. There is also the issue of rest that Dr. Susan was mentioning. Again, we are living in a world where everything is fast-paced, and most people don't want any form of rest. People take it as a disadvantage. You think that you're losing out on maybe something you could be doing to make money. And so you find that even one of the challenges that people have been having in this season is just that ability. Even if you are not out of a job, you're still working, but you're working from home, and probably the volume of work that you had has reduced. You find a lot of people are actually even getting stressed by that fact that, I wake up and I'm not going anywhere. or even I don't have as much work to do to occupy myself. And so they are unable to even rest. Rest has become a burden. And so, of course, if you're not resting, then it means that there is also no balance in your life. So it's about looking at our lives from a broader perspective and being able to understand that for me to function effectively, I need to pay attention to all these areas of my life, how I function as an individual, how I relate with other people, whether I give myself adequate time to rest, and also even my spiritual life, how it is working out. Because then when you are balanced, it means that when a crisis comes, then you have different areas, different resources to draw from so that you're able to deal with that particular crisis.
Okay, Onyango, talk to us about the importance of coping mechanisms, because it might be a double-edged sword. Some mechanisms might actually lead you deeper into the hole you're trying to dig yourself out from.
Right, I think that's a very important question. Myself, when I realized that something was off with me as a teenager, I started writing. And because I was going through so much pain, I felt if I didn't say something, I was going to die. But I also had unhealthy coping mechanisms. I'd run away from home. I was a street boy at some point. And later in life, I also suffered from hypersexuality, which put me at a very risky place as a young man. So I think the more you're aware of who you are, the more you can know what is healthy and what is unhealthy for you. But also, when your brain is traumatized, your brain is almost always trying to protect you. So your coping mechanism sometimes is picked up by your brain, and you're very unconscious about what you're doing to harm yourself. So people who, for example, cut their wrists, they're looking for a way to still feel alive. And because of the mental health of their brain, they actually don't know that this is very harmful to them, So in some instances, treatment might actually be a better way out. And in others, social support is another better way out. Because if you maybe discover that your coping mechanism is not working for you, maybe you can try something else that involves people. Because having people around us is also a very good way to help our nervous system regulate, so that could be something somebody could look into.
Okay, Daktari, your take on coping mechanisms, because at times we hear, sleeping better, outdoor interactions, improving your diet might also contribute to this, but there's option of therapy and drugs. Which one is better for mental health conditions?
Well, I would like to say that there is a point where the signs and symptoms will need psychopharmacology, or they will actually need drugs, where you need to take this person to a psychiatric nurse or a psychiatric doctor. But if we can prevent people from taking those drugs because they can be managed through psychotherapy, the better. Why? Because any psychiatric drug you take, it changes the neural mechanisms. And so there are some drugs, and we know this nation, we have a problem with probably what we can call drugs that may not have severe side effects. And I like to tell everybody here, kindly, if you can have access to government hospitals, especially Mathari National Teaching and Referral Hospital, kindly go there. Do not look at stigma, do not look at what people say, but because they have access to some of the most effective drugs. Because if you just decide to go anywhere, you never know what people are in business as well. And the minute you start using certain drugs and you are probably not meant to, you don't know what could happen to your brain thereafter. And that is why I keep saying we need to work together. Can we work together? Can the first person that can receive a client be a counselor? And once they do clinical assessment, they find this is not my case. I do that most of the time. I refer to a psychiatrist. Then the psychiatrist, I pray in your centers, please have counselors, because the cases that come back to us with people who are taking drugs and they're saying the doctor only has 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and you're paying so much. That is why the government needs to enlarge mental health support at the grassroots level, so that people who can't afford drugs that go for 10,000, 6,000, consultation that goes for 6,000, surely we don't need to see people in this country lose their mental health status. We need them as fathers, we need them as mothers. I would like to say that there are companies right now or employers that have put together mechanisms to take care of their workers, because some people, even working from home, is a big stressor because they are not able to interact with colleagues, maybe who are their social support. And I'm very happy because I have pushed, and I'm happy because at African Nazarene University, we are rolling out a professional course for everybody, whether you are a nurse, a journalist, and it's about training your brain to relax. It's called mindful self-compassion. Why? Right now, the whole world is crying. So it's common humanity to suffer at this time. It is good to treat yourself with kindness no matter what happens, even when somebody pulls you down. And it is good to be compassionate to yourself and to other people. But how do you do that? I want to tell you the secret is actually neuroplasticity. And that comes out whether you are traumatized as a child, whether you are traumatized as a teenager, or right now there are things happening to you. The breath of life. And as Africans, I like what Jane has said. It's like when we are taking a break, when we are retreating. Even the soldiers retreat when they find that the battle is too hot and they don't have the tricks and strategies. They retreat. Yeah. Even for human beings, we need to be taught to retreat. And retreating here is going deep into your mind, is going deep to your brain. And that is a technique that is actually simple to apply. And I hope when we roll out this course, they will actually come, everybody. It's for our students, but we said in the Senate, we are going to open it to people. Why? Because learning institutions also need to be a seat of solutions to what is happening in this nation at this particular moment. So if you are good at this level, kindly, and I'm appealing to all universities. I know there are hard times. Economically, some of you have gone without salaries, but this is the time every Kenyan needs to arise so that we do not see many mental health cases like we saw after the post-colonial times. We need to up our game, and thank you for what you're doing as media, stakeholders, because you are highlighting these issues when nobody else would not want to talk about them. Thank you.
Okay, so everyone definitely needs to pull their weight. So, Jane Gasheru, I'm seated with a person who might be developing anxiety or depression. How can I speak to them in order to appeal to their emotional being, their well-being? Yeah.
I think, the best way for people who are not, of course, trained as counselors, the best thing that you could actually do for this person is listen. Listen to them. When I say listen to them, it means that you allow them to talk without offering advice. I think most people are trained to think or imagine that the best way that I can offer help is by giving you solutions upfront. But then giving solutions means that you are only giving this person solutions that would work for you from your own perspective. Mm-hmm. So that means we do not allow people to express themselves. We do not allow people to let out the pain. So listen to the person, let them tell you what hurts, what is happening in their lives, validate them, encourage them, reach out, even when you're not together. Reach out to find out how they are doing, also suggest places where they can seek help, because then at the end of the day, you might be dealing with someone who actually needs professional help. And of course, to treat people with kindness and compassion. I think one of the challenges that we have, and I don't blame anybody for this, I mean the lay person, the way that we again know how to deal with people's problems is, if we feel like someone is sharing something that you think for you is small, we tend to be very dismissive, that, just that small tiny thing, you'll get over it, don't worry. What else it helps to tell the person not to worry, maybe they might feel encouraged as at that time, but then they go back to the same place where they have been before. So it's good to understand that this person is different from you, we are all unique. Let them express themselves however small you think that problem is. And also point them in the right direction. Right now, we have a number of, we have some organizations that are offering mental health support, some even for free. So when you understand that, then you can be able to point someone in the right direction.
Okay, Onyango, speaking of pointing someone to the right direction, I think our viewers might want to know what they can do if someone appears to have the symptoms of mental disorder, because the talk in the streets is, I mean, it will be dismissive, unfortunately, in some instances, with a sense of finality, with the tags attached to it, amechizi. You know, it's quite unfortunate with how we deal with this. So, are there warning signs? Can people actually recover from mental illness? And what should I do if someone appears to have certain signs?
Yeah, again, that's a very difficult question because our bodies are very, very different. You know, one person can live with depression for so many years, like you heard with Dr. Suvan's dad. And another person can only have 2 months, and another person 5 years, and another person, so it's very different. At the point of intervention is also very critical because the point at which you get help will actually determine how fast you can recover from whatever you're going through. Myself, I have lived with depression, I have lived with anxiety, I've also lived with post-traumatic stress, which was like from a very difficult childhood that my dad was violent and all that. But the moment I started being aware, and that is in 2017 when I had my last bout of suicide ideation, my life completely changed. My life completely changed. The more I got information, I went through therapy. I even did a course in trauma healing before I started working with the police because I understood the brain and I also understood my story. I understood my body. But what makes it more powerful for me is I am very courageous to talk about what happened to me, to talk about what's happening with me. And even to just serve as an example for many boys, especially those in their teenage lives, because that is among the most critical and crucial points in our children's lives. Okay. For me, it was that way. I didn't have people to talk to. I didn't have places to go. And I was like, why is life so difficult for me? And I'm going through things I don't understand. So when I got it, I started using my story to start empowering people around me. So for me, the courage to come out is also a very critical tool in helping people know how to assist us, how to help us. And I know for sure, living with all this stigma makes it difficult. Even the fact that for men, it is harder because you're not socialized to talk about your emotions, to talk about your mental struggles. But I tell guys, this is your life. This is your life. When we are counting you on your grave, it is your name we are mentioning that you have departed. It is your name we are mentioning that you've left us. That time it won't be about men. That time it won't be about, oh, you are a good person, oh, blah, 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 blah. It will be that you are gone and we'll move on with our lives. So I stopped living with that fear, and people stigmatize me all the time because of talking up, and most times it's actually still men who stigmatize you because they see you as a different person. They don't understand how come you want to be different from us. But I'm very healthy today. I have very healthy relationships, and I'm very, very happy because I spoke up. So speaking up is the first point of intervention for me, and having relationships where people also have that kind of awareness. So in fact, I would even suggest that from the course that Dr. Susan has mentioned, that all of us actually go to it. You know, our friends, our family, our colleagues, our bosses, everybody needs this course. It's supposed to be basic education from even primary school level, because that way then we can know how our bodies operate, how when somebody is going through something low, how we can be there for them. Myself, when the first bout of depression got me, the last bout of depression got me. My friends had no idea what depression was, but they came to my house, and these are male friends, to be precise. They would open up my curtains, they would do the dishes for me, they would wash my house, they would cook for me. They knew Onyango is not okay. We don't know, we don't understand what this thing is, but we are going to be here with him and for him. And that helped me a lot, you know? So I also tell guys, you don't have to know exactly what's going on with somebody, but just the presence, you being there, can actually save their lives.
Well, Onyango, I must say you have a good bunch of friends right there. Over to Dr. Susan Gitau. As we put this matter to rest, you talked about organized intervention and making sure that help reaches even the grassroots level. Talk to us about the policy issues we might have in terms of facing the mental health challenges we have as a country. Do we need to relook at the policy and implementation levels?
One of the things I would like to say is that they are beautiful documents. We even have the Counselors and Psychologists Act that was passed in 2014, amended in 2019. And right now, I hear, I'm not sure, but we have given data because we have to be managed and controlled, I would say, by the Ministry of Health. I hear there are plans underway. I think it's almost now 1 year plus to actually come up with a counselors and psychologists board. Because if the board is there, I want to tell you, counselors are the largest in terms of personnel. Psychiatrists in this nation are very few. The psychiatric nurses, it's like a pyramid that goes like this. Because counselors are very many, all the way to the certificate training, and even going lower to what we call community counselors. We can't be able to be around there and take care of people at the grassroots level. What I find a little bit disturbing is the way the processes in this nation in terms of execution and implementation of our beautiful processes go. Because we have the Mental Health Act, we have actually the Veterans Mental Health Act that is underway, how we can also take care of people who retired from the police force or the defense forces, because we forget about them. And maybe they have taken all the traumas from the mission to the families and to the community. So we also need to keep talking. If there's a way we can have a government mental health champion, the way we have the government spokesman, we need to be told regularly what is the government doing in terms of mental health status in this nation. Because you will hear the president one day tell us we have given a lot of money and this one is going to lead that initiative. And we are waiting and waiting and waiting. And I want to tell people kindly, when you have been given a duty to protect humanity, like Onyango has said, history will go with you. If you take money or you disorganize people or you do not put measures into practice that you know you've been empowered to do, let me tell you, one thing I know, and I don't mince my words, there is actually a God in heaven. I'm a believer and I work in an institution where we believe that when you actually don't become compassionate to humanity and you are in a position to do it, you have also disorganized your life, you have cast your life, and the generations that follow you. So I would like to say, everybody, we need to rise up and do something. But I want to give somebody, the viewer, something. Okay. For you. When there is no one near you and things are very tight, it can be as easy as just closing your eyes shortly if there is no danger around you. If you get a corner in your house or the seat that you use and you feel comfortable, close your eyes shortly and listen to your breath of life. And if you can breathe in rhythmically, in and out, and I say you breathe in using your nostril and out using your mouth. And if you like, you can make it more rhythmic. You can do a count of 4. You count, and then you can hold your breath, and then you release to a count of 8. And you do this regularly. Your brain starts balancing. That is the neuroplasticity I am talking about. Okay. That most people, when they do something, they later regret. They lack mindfulness. They don't have a minute, a second to pay attention to how they are feeling, how they are thinking, and how they are behaving. And the fastest way to balance your brain is the breath of life that brought you into this world and the breath of life that you will lose when you go to the next world. I am saying this because even when you teach this to little children, you're helping them. Okay. When you hear a story like Onyango, if he never stumbled on help, tell me, we would be losing a great testimony in the name of Onyango. And many street children are actually going through what Onyango is saying. And I have many of them that have come out, like Onyango, male gender, arise. We need you men in leadership. We need you because you are the ones who are blessed a lot with the left side of the brain, where you think logically, innovative and all that. So when we lose you, we are losing a nation. So when we have people like Onyango, lift up the boy child as we lift up the girl child. Thank you.
Okay, well noted, and I definitely learned a thing or two around neuroplasticity. Due to time, I'd like us to give our final comments. Kindly limit ourselves to 1 minute, because we've talked about the causes, the telltale signs, the importance of self-awareness, how to help, and the treatment options. Our final take, I'll start with you, Jane Gasheru, kindly.
All right. I think one of the things that I would like to say is that nowadays it's easier to seek help. We have right now organizations that are offering a lot of help for free. Amani Counseling Center, for example, I work there as a counselor trainer. They are offering free help when it comes to issues of domestic violence. So if you've been facing domestic violence, just reach out, call them, and you will get the help you need. We also have an organization like Befrienders Kenya, who also deal with cases of suicide as well as other mental health problems. So reach out if you feel that you're at a breaking point. Reach out either with those organizations or other counselors as well.
Okay, Onyango Otieno, your final take as we put this matter to rest.
Yeah, I will echo the words of one German philosopher. His name is Friedrich Nietzsche. He said, "There is more wisdom in your body than in your deepest philosophy." And in the world of neuroscience, there's something called neuroception, which is the ability of our nervous system to distinguish what is safe for us, a place, a person, or situation. Let us concentrate on our bodies. Your bodies has the answers you're looking for. Listen to yourself. Listen to yourself. Dance. Eat well. Have great friends. Listen to your body. Take care of your body.
Well, I can't add any point to that. Dr. Susan Gitau, your final take as we conclude, briefly.
I would like to say everybody can offer what we call psychological first aid, huduma ya kwanza ya kisaikolojia, where you need to be informed, know what is mental health and know about mental health, where you need to look, observe your friends, your colleagues, your family members. If they are changing, kindly observe. That is looking. I would like you to say, listen. Listen to what somebody is saying without judging them, and I would like to say link them. And I like to say for the most vulnerable people around me, where I live in Thika. I run a foundation called Susan Gitau Counseling Foundation, and we are together with other counselors. We are trying to have an app because right now we are all under one roof in our homes. We are trying to go virtual online, and we are partnering with DocCU. You will see DocCU app. And we want as many counselors online to help. And we would like the government to actually partner with private and non-governmental institutions so that we prevent any mental health huge burden in our future.
Okay, many thanks, Dr. Susan Gitau right there, who's a counseling psychologist and lecturer at African Nazarene. Onyango Otieno, a mental health advocate. We appreciate your input always. And James Gasheru, who is a counseling psychologist. Many thanks for your input right here. So listen, link them, but more importantly, seek help if you feel something is going wrong. Many thanks for staying with us. Let's take a short break. We'll be back with more information for you. So do stay right here on KTN News.